Warsaw, September 10th, Reuters. Poland shot down drones that entered its airspace during a widespread Russian attack in western Ukraine on Wednesday, with the NATO member calling the incursion an act of aggression. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said that he was in constant contact with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Tusk has called for an emergency meeting of the Council of Ministers at 8 a.m. Poland's military command said drones repeatedly violated Polish airspace during the Russian attack across the border in western Ukraine, but that operations against these violations had now concluded. Radars tracked more than 10 objects, and those that could pose a threat were neutralized, the command said. Some of the drones that entered our airspace were shot down. Searches and efforts to locate the potential crash sites of these objects are ongoing, it said in a statement. It urged people to stay at home, naming the regions of Podlaskie, Mazowiecki, and Lublin as most at risk, adding, "This is an act of aggression that posed a real threat to the safety of our citizens." Russia's defense ministry did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for comment. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had been briefed, CNN reporter Caitlin Collins said on Tuesday. The State Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. NATO is yet to comment on the incident. Since the war started in 2022, there have been several incidents of Russian drones entering the airspace of states bordering Ukraine, including Poland and Romania, but they have so far avoided shooting them down. Officials have cited the physical danger that such actions could cause and a desire to avoid an escalation in tensions between Russia and NATO.
Poland says it has shot down Russian drones that violated its airspace during an aerial attack on Ukraine. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk took to social media, saying the drones posed a direct threat. Poland's armed forces was on heightened alert today because of what they describe as massive airstrikes on Ukraine. Meanwhile, NATO says it is consulting closely with Polish leaders. This marks the first time a NATO member has fired shots in the war.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha said the violations of Poland's airspace showed Russian President Vladimir Putin was expanding his war and testing the West. The longer he faces no strength in response, the more aggressive he gets, Sybiha said on X. A weak response now will provoke Russia even more, and then Russian missiles and drones will fly even further into Europe. Chopin Airport in Warsaw, the country's largest, closed its airspace for several hours before reopening. It said there would be disruptions and delays through the day. Most of Ukraine, including western regions of Volyn and Lviv, which border Poland, had been under air raid alerts for nearly all night, according to Ukraine's Air Force. Earlier, Ukraine's Air Force reported that Russian drones had entered NATO member Poland's airspace, posing a threat to the city of Zamosk, but it subsequently removed that statement from the Telegram messaging app. In the United States, Democratic Senator Dick Durbin said repeated violations of NATO airspace by Russian drones were a sign that Vladimir Putin is testing our resolve to protect Poland and the Baltic nations.
Just today, we have seen a reckless and unprecedented violation of Poland and Europe's airspace by more than 10 Russian Shahed drones. Europe stands in full solidarity with Poland. Putin's message is clear, and our response must be clear too. We need more pressure on Russia to come to the negotiation table. We need more sanctions. We are now working on the 19th package in coordination with partners. We're particularly looking at phasing out Russian fossil fuels faster. We're looking at the shadow fleet and at third countries.
After the carnage, Putin continues to visit on Ukraine. These incursions cannot be ignored, he said on X. Republican Representative Joe Wilson, a senior member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, said in a post on X that Russia was attacking NATO ally Poland with drones, calling it an act of war. Wilson urged U.S. President Donald Trump to respond with sanctions that will bankrupt the Russian war machine. Putin is no longer content just losing in Ukraine while bombing mothers and babies. He is now directly testing our resolve in NATO territory, he said. Trump, who warmly welcomed Putin to the United States for a summit in August, said over the weekend he was ready to move to a second phase of sanctioning Russia after months of fruitless talks about a peace deal. It was his strongest indication yet that he may escalate pressure on Moscow or its oil buyers in response to the war in Ukraine. The European Union's top sanctions official was in Washington on Monday to discuss what would be the first coordinated transatlantic measures against Russia since Trump returned to office in January, promising to end the war in 24 hours. Poland has been on high alert for objects entering its airspace since a stray Ukrainian missile struck a southern Polish village in 2022, killing 2 people a few months into Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Poland earlier said it would close its border with Belarus on Thursday at midnight local time as a result of Russia-led military exercises taking place in Belarus. Russia and Belarus's large-scale military exercises, known as the Zapad drills, have raised security concerns in neighboring NATO member states Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia. Lithuania said defenses along its border with Belarus and Russia would be strengthened due to the exercises.